My mother practiced crying on my front porch like she was preparing for a church play. My father stood beside her, repeating one sentence over and over, his voice flat and tired. "We just want our daughter back." From the passenger seat of a black pickup, my older sister Celeste corrected them like a director. "Mom, touch your chest when you say it. Dad, look sad. Not guilty." They forgot my doorbell camera had audio. They forgot I had already saved 8 months of proof. And they forgot one more thing. A quiet woman does not stay quiet because she is weak. Sometimes she stays quiet because every paper is already filed. My name is Maris Whitlock. I am 56 years old, and I run a small home care office in Mercer Falls, Indiana. Most of my patients are older people who want to stay in their own homes instead of being sent away somewhere cold and unfamiliar. I check blood pressure, arrange nurses, help families understand medicine bottles, and sit with widows who pretend they only called because of dizziness when really they just needed another human voice in the room. My office sits in an old insurance building downtown. I named it Mabel House Care after my grandmother, Mabel Whitlock, because she was the only person in my family who ever looked at me and saw strength instead of usefulness. Grandma Mabel owned 52 acres outside town, flat brown Indiana ground with a white barn, a walnut tree, and a narrow creek that made music after rain. She used to take me walking there every Sunday after lunch. She would press her hand against the fence post and say, "Maris, this land will be yours because you understand what roots mean." She said it in front of my parents, Iris and Benton. She said it in front of my sister Celeste. Nobody argued then. Celeste had married Wade Rourke, the man who owned the biggest construction supply company in the county. She had the new brick house, the lake boat, the Sunday smile, and the kind of husband people feared because he could give work or take it away. What did she need with Grandma's farm? That was what I thought. That was my mistake. When Grandma got sick, Celeste stepped forward with casseroles, clean sweaters, and a folder full of legal forms. She told everyone she was handling things. She got Grandma to sign a durable power of attorney, saying it was only so bills could be paid while Grandma was in treatment. I was working 6 days a week, driving to the hospital every evening, rubbing lotion into Grandma's hands, listening to her breathe. Celeste was the one going to the bank. Celeste was the one speaking to the lawyer. Celeste was the one standing between the rest of us and the truth. Grandma died in March. 5 weeks later, I found the county record at midnight because I could not sleep. Transfer of 52 acres from Mabel J. Whitlock to Wade Rourke. Purchase price, $190,000. Market value, according to 2 nearby sales, was more than $600,000. I called my mother first. She cried before I even finished the question. Not shock tears, tired tears. Celeste said it had to be done for medical bills. There were no medical bills. I had helped Grandma get supplemental coverage 2 years earlier. I had the statements. I called my father. He said, "Maris, don't start trouble." Then I called Celeste. She laughed softly, the way rich women laugh when they are trying to sound gentle while twisting a knife. "You left this family years ago," she said. "Grandma needed people who stayed." Then she added the sentence that burned into me harder than the theft. "That farm would have been wasted on a bitter old nurse with no children." I hung up, took every family photo off my walls, and called an attorney 2 counties away. For 8 months, I said nothing. I did not scream at Thanksgiving. I did not post online. I did not explain myself to church ladies in the grocery aisle. I worked. I cared for patients. I paid my bills. And every week, my attorney, Leland Shore, built the case. He got the power of attorney. He got the closing documents. He got an independent appraisal valuing the farm at $612,000. He found the clause Celeste had abused. Assets may be sold only for the principal's welfare, not for the son-in-law's new subdivision. not for Celeste's dream of naming a street after herself. If you have ever been called dramatic for noticing the knife in your back, stay with me, because this is where the silence starts turning into receipts. Then, one Tuesday afternoon, my phone buzzed while I was sitting in my car eating a peanut butter cracker between patient visits. Doorbell alert. My parents were standing on my porch. Mom dabbed her eyes. Dad stared at the welcome mat. Celeste's voice came from Wade's truck in the driveway. Remember, don't mention the lawsuit. Say family matter. Say you miss her. Make her come to Heritage Day, and make sure people see you together. My mother practiced a sob. My father whispered, "We just want our daughter back." Celeste snapped, "Again, Dad," with feeling. I watched the whole thing from my phone. 4 minutes and 36 seconds of fake grief with clean shoes and a script. I saved the video. Then I finished my cracker and went back to work. That evening, they were still on my porch. I let them inside. My mother hugged me too long. My father said his line exactly the way he had rehearsed it. "We just want our daughter back." I made coffee because I wanted to see how long they could pretend. 40 minutes. That was how long they talked about weather, church, neighbors, and my mother's knee before they finally reached the real reason. Heritage Day was coming. The biggest town event of the year. Booths, music, speeches, old property maps from the county archive, and half the town watching who stood beside whom. "People are talking," Mom said. "It would help if they saw us as a family again." There it was. Not love, not regret. Reputation. I smiled gently and said, "I'll think about it." My mother looked relieved, like she had won me back. She had not. She had only walked into the part of the story where the truth got witnesses. 2 days later, Wade Rourke came to my office. He had never stepped inside before. Not when I opened it. Not when Grandma's name went on the sign. He sat across from me in my consultation room, spread his big hands on his knees, and said, "You're embarrassing everyone, Maris." I looked at him the way I look at a patient who refuses to take his blood pressure medicine. Calm, but not impressed. He said the sale was legal. I said legal papers can still be used dishonestly. He leaned forward and smiled. That land was too much for a lonely woman anyway. I stood up and opened the door. "This office closes at 5, Wade." He walked out red in the neck. My hands shook after he left, not because I was scared, but because I had wanted to slap the smile off his face and chose evidence instead. 3 days before Heritage Day, my great-aunt Lorna came to my house carrying an old cedar sewing box. She was 79, sharp-eyed, and loyal to Grandma in a way that made people nervous. "Mabel told me to give this to you when they started rewriting her," she said. Inside was Grandma's thimble, a stack of recipes, and the blue church quilt she had used for every winter visit of my childhood. In the lining, I felt something hard. I opened a seam with a tiny pair of scissors and found a brass key taped to a folded note. "Maris, Box 309, First Farmers Bank. Do not let them sell my wishes for comfort. Love, Grandma." The next morning, I opened that safe deposit box and found a notarized letter. Grandma had written that the farm was meant for me, that Celeste was pressuring her, and that she feared the power of attorney would be misused. 2 people had witnessed it: Aunt Lorna and Orville Pike, the retired county assessor. Heritage Day arrived hot and bright. I set up my health booth like I did every year. Free blood pressure checks under a white tent. Celeste had made sure Wade's company sponsored the main stage. Their banner hung above the microphone. My parents arrived in Wade's truck, dressed like a family portrait. Mom hugged me in front of everyone and said loudly, "My baby is back where she belongs." I felt 50 heads turn. I smiled, checked Mrs. Delaney's blood pressure, and wrote down 128/76. Then Aunt Lorna walked into the park with Grandma's quilt over her arm. She spread it across my table and said, clear enough for nearby booths to hear. Mabel wanted Maris to have this where people could see. People gathered because old women, old quilts, and old secrets always pull a crowd. At noon, Celeste took the stage. She honored Grandma with polished words and dry eyes. She praised Wade for developing unused family land into homes for the future. Unused. Family land. I saw 3 farmers look at each other. Then Celeste pointed toward my booth and smiled. And we are grateful my sister Maris has finally chosen family again. A small murmur moved through the crowd. Mrs. Delaney, who had known me since I was 20, said loudly, "That woman never stopped choosing family. Family stopped choosing her." Celeste's smile cracked. She stepped off the stage and came straight to my booth, heels stabbing the grass. "You planned this," she hissed. "You brought that quilt to make me look bad." I put down my pen. "No, Celeste, you did that part yourself." She slapped her palm on Grandma's quilt. That was when my patience ended. Not loudly, not wildly, just completely. I reached under the table and took out a brown folder. "Since you want to discuss Grandma in public, let's be accurate." I laid out the appraisal first. 52 acres, independent value, $612,000. Then, the transfer record. Sold to Wade Rourke for $190,000. Then Grandma's notarized letter. Grandma wrote that the land was meant for me, and that you were pressuring her while she was sick. Witnessed. Signed. Preserved in a safe deposit box she hid from you. The crowd went silent in that heavy way older people understand, when the truth is not loud but it lands like a coffin lid. Celeste's face turned pale. Wade stepped back like distance could save him. My mother started crying. Real this time. Celeste shouted, "I took care of her while you played saint with old people for money." That insult hit hard, not because it was clever, but because it showed everyone who she really was. I looked at the patients standing around my booth, the widows, the retired farmers, the women with walkers, the men with hearing aids, the people I had cared for when their own families were too busy. "Those old people," I said, "are the reason this town still has a soul." Then I turned to my father. "Tell the truth, Dad. Did you know the price was wrong?" He looked at Celeste, then at Wade, then at me. His mouth trembled. "Yes," he said, "we knew." My mother covered her face. Celeste whispered, "Dad, shut up." But the damage was done. The truth had finally found a voice. I took out my phone and played the porch video. My mother practicing tears. My father repeating his line. Celeste directing them from the truck. "Say you miss her. Make her come to Heritage Day." Nobody spoke. Even the children near the snow cone stand seemed quieter. I stopped the video and looked at my sister. "You rehearsed love because you never learned how to give it." Wade grabbed her arm and said they were leaving. Before he could turn away, I said, "Court hearing is in 13 days. Breach of fiduciary duty. Undue influence? Civil fraud? Leland already filed." Wade's sponsor banner moved in the wind above him, bright and useless. He had spent money to put his name over the stage, and all it did was give the town a better place to look while he walked away. They settled before court. Wade's attorney called mine and offered $422,000 plus my legal fees. Not kindness, fear. A jury in Mercer Falls would know the price of dirt, and they would know what kind of man buys a dying woman's farm for pennies. I accepted. I did not want Wade's half-built subdivision torn down. I wanted Grandma's value returned. I used the money to open the Mabel Whitlock Senior Care Wing, with 2 respite rooms for exhausted caregivers and a grief counselor twice a week. On opening day, Aunt Lorna placed Grandma's quilt in a glass case by the front desk. Under it, a small brass plaque reads, "For every woman whose truth was almost buried." My parents call on Sundays now. between 2 and 4, because those are the boundaries I wrote down. My mother still cries, but I no longer rush to comfort tears that arrive after consequences. My father came to the office once, alone, and said, "I was a coward." I told him, "Yes, you were." He nodded because some apologies only become real when nobody softens them for you. Celeste has not spoken to me since Heritage Day. That is not a loss. Some silence is punishment. Some silence is peace. Mine is peace. People think revenge is screaming, breaking things, or begging the world to believe you. It is not. Sometimes revenge is a doorbell camera. Sometimes it is a quilt with a hidden key. Sometimes it is an old woman's letter waiting in a bank box because she knew love needs proof when family starts lying. My mother practiced crying on my porch. My father rehearsed a sentence he should have meant. My sister tried to direct the whole town like one of her little performances, but Grandma had already written the ending, and I was finally brave enough to read it out loud. If you have ever been called bitter for refusing to be robbed, remember this: truth does not need to shout. It only needs the right table, the right witness, and the right woman who is done being quiet. Commentary, discussion, explanation, and lessons. Now let's slow down and talk about what really happened in this story, because this was not only a story about stolen land, it was about control, silence, family pressure, and the painful moment when one woman finally stopped protecting people who never protected her. Maris was not trying to destroy her family. She was trying to protect the truth her grandmother left behind, and that is a very important difference. At the beginning, the porch scene tells us everything. Her mother is practicing tears. Her father is repeating one line. Her sister is giving directions from the truck. That moment is powerful because it shows fake love in its clearest form. Real love does not need rehearsal. Real regret does not need a script. When someone has truly hurt you, they do not come to your door thinking about how they look. They come thinking about what they did. But Maris's family was not worried about her pain. They were worried about their image in town. The stolen farm is the heart of the betrayal. Grandma Mabel wanted Maris to have that land because Maris understood its meaning. It was not just property. It was memory, roots, family history, and love. But Celeste saw the land as money and power. Wade saw it as a business opportunity. And the parents saw the truth, but stayed quiet because speaking up would cost them comfort. That is one of the hardest parts of this story. Sometimes people do not betray you because they hate you. Sometimes they betray you because telling the truth would make their own life harder. Maris's revenge is not loud at first. She does not scream. She does not chase them. She does not beg the town to believe her. She gathers proof. This is what makes her strong. She understands that anger without evidence can be dismissed as drama. But documents, witnesses, records, and dates cannot be waved away so easily. Her silence was not weakness. Her silence was preparation. That is a lesson many people need to hear. If someone has wronged you, do not only react emotionally. Protect yourself wisely. Write things down. Save proof. Watch patterns. And do not announce every move before you are ready. The quilt and the hidden key bring deep emotion into the story. Grandma Mabel may have been sick, but she was not foolish. She knew something was wrong. She knew Celeste was applying pressure. So she left Maris a quiet message inside something full of love. That detail matters. The quilt is not just a plot twist. It represents protection from beyond the grave. It shows that sometimes the people who truly love us prepare strength for us, even when they are no longer standing beside us. Grandma could not fight in court herself, but she gave Maris the truth. Heritage Day is where the private lie becomes public truth. Celeste thought she controlled the stage, the microphone, the family image, and the town's opinion. But she forgot one thing. A community has memory. Older people remember what was promised. Farmers know the value of land. Neighbors understand when something does not feel right. Maris did not need to perform. She only needed to let the facts become visible. That is why the public reveal feels so satisfying. It is not cheap drama. It is truth finally standing where lies had been standing for months. The hardest emotional moment is when the father admits, "We knew." That line changes everything. It proves Maris was not imagining the betrayal. Her parents were not innocent. They were afraid, dependent, and weak. But they still made a choice. And in families, silence can do as much damage as lying. If you know someone is being hurt and you stay quiet to protect your own comfort, you are not neutral. You are part of the harm. The story also shows us that forgiveness and access are not the same thing. Maris does not spend the ending screaming forever. She does not let bitterness eat her life. But she also does not pretend everything is fine. She sets rules. Sunday calls between 2 and 4. No contact with Celeste. Legal matters through attorneys. That is mature healing. Sometimes peace means loving people from a distance. Sometimes it means allowing an apology, but not allowing the same person to hurt you again. The biggest lesson from this story is simple. Do not let people call your boundaries bitterness. Maris was called lonely, dramatic, ungrateful, and bitter because she refused to accept theft with a smile. But the truth is, she was the only person acting with real respect for Grandma's wishes. Family is not a magic word that erases betrayal. Blood does not give someone the right to steal from you, lie about you, or use your kindness as a weakness. Another lesson is that image can collapse very quickly when truth arrives. Celeste had money, status, a husband with influence, and parents willing to follow her script. But one folder, one video, one letter, and one brave woman changed the whole story. That is why we should never underestimate quiet people. They may not be speaking because they are scared. They may be speaking to lawyers, banks, witnesses, and records instead. In the end, Maris did not just win money. She turned the stolen value into something useful for the town. She opened a senior care wing in her grandmother's name. That is the best kind of revenge. Not revenge that only destroys, but revenge that restores. Celeste tried to turn Grandma's land into personal profit. Maris turned Grandma's legacy into care, dignity, and safety for older people. That is why the ending feels peaceful, not empty. So when we look at this story, we are not only watching family drama, we are watching a woman learn that truth deserves protection. We are watching a grandmother's love survive through a quilt, a key, and a letter. And we are watching fake tears lose against real evidence. The message is clear. When people rehearse love, pay attention. Real love does not need coaching. Real love shows up honest, even when honesty costs something.